Few showery bursts can't be ruled out. Meanwhile, across Northern Ireland, mostly dry once that front has pushed through, and even as it does, it's not going to bring a huge amount of rain. And then across the bulk of England and Wales, a dry end to the day with lots of late sunshine as well. Overnight, like I said, that front does push its way into some western parts of Scotland, bringing some drizzly rain at times. Elsewhere, whilst there will be some cloud here and there, most places staying dry, most places having clear skies, but it is going to be another relatively warm night, some places holding up around 15 or 16 degrees. So pretty warm start to the day tomorrow, and it is going to be another warm and sunny day for many as well. Plenty of sunshine on offer yet again, just a bit more clouds still across northern parts as that front continues to edge its way across parts of Scotland, and again a little bit of rain out towards the Western Isles in particular. Temperatures on Thursday likely to be even higher than today. We're looking at highs of around 28 or 29 Celsius, but we have even hotter weather to come as we go into the weekend, low possibly mid-30s.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A483 southbound at Rosslyn-a-Crugog is resurfacing, causing closures until 6 o'clock tomorrow. In Doncaster, the A1M southbound at Junction 35 has a severe crash, expected to clear by 11:52 this morning. In Cheshire West and Chester, one lane of the M56 eastbound at Junction 14 is closed due to a collision, causing a 10-minute delay. And on the trains, cross-country services face disruptions on various routes, while major delays affect South Western Railway between Basingstoke and Eastleigh Salisbury and between Guildford and Woking. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now imagine this. You spend your entire life dreaming of public service. You work your way up to become the Director of Public Prosecutions. You then become a Member of Parliament, and just next to your constituency is a world-famous museum hosting
I'm imagining it, Tom.
waxworks of famous figures, and you dream that one day you will be featured in this mausoleum, for want of a better word. You become Prime Minister and you think, now, finally, my waxwork will be on display at the world-famous Madame Tussauds. And then they say no.
And then you find out that Theresa May has one.
Oh.
Yes, so Madame Tussauds, there's Theresa May. There she is in her suit.
Yeah,
she was always one for colourful outfits,
Theresa May has a waxwork there, so does Boris Johnson, of course. It's reasonable to expect the Prime Minister would have thought that he would join the likes of David Cameron, Theresa May and Boris Johnson with a waxwork.
Winston Churchill. Yeah. Winston Churchill has one. Harold Macmillan apparently was previously displayed. Tony Blair.
Of course.
Tony Blair, of course. But apparently, so Madame Tussauds can't be sure that he'll still be relevant in 5 years' time. That's the reason.
Is that why they've said it? No.
They can't be sure, so they don't want to put the money into it, presumably.
Wow.
I could imagine Keir Starmer commissioning his own.
And yet, Lord Salisbury had a waxwork, the Marquis of Salisbury, Harold Macmillan and David Lloyd George, of course. But the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland...
Think about this.
...does not have a waxwork because he's not relevant.
A spokesperson told the Metro, "We have no current plans to make a figure of the British Prime Minister."
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, 9:30 on Wednesday, the 18th of June, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So the question being asked across the world this morning, are we edging close to a major world war?
After another night of strikes between Israel and Iran, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, issues this ultimatum to Iran: surrender unconditionally or pay the price.
Well, the Iranian regime has just said any US intervention would be tantamount to an all-out war.
And back here, abortion decriminalised yesterday. MPs have voted to ensure that women do not face prosecution for ending their pregnancy at any time during pregnancy without a doctor's approval.
Visas to be docked sounded like Tory policy to me. Countries refusing to take back asylum seekers could face sanctions on visas. The Prime Minister spoke to GB News.
Looking in a much more smart way at the way we deal with visas, perhaps more transactional, you might say, which is looking at the countries that we have visa arrangements with and asking ourselves, are there enough preventative measures?
It's all very softly, isn't it? So, another delay. Sir Keir Starmer has halted the high-speed train line between London and Birmingham, slamming the Tories for £37 billion of failure over HS2.
These two leaders gave completely different interpretations.
Scottish waste wars. Scotland is about to send 100 trucks of rubbish to England every single day due to a landfill ban in Scotland next year because the SNP government didn't provide proper incineration capacity. I think it's outrageous.
And you'll be feeling hot. UK temperatures are going to hit 33 degrees this weekend, with warnings from the Met Office that heat waves above 40 degrees centigrade could be the future for British weather due to, you guessed it, man-made climate change. There's a lot of big stories going on today. It's almost difficult to know where to start. Clearly, the events in the Middle East are the headlines for everybody this morning. The front pages of all the papers are concerned about
the
that.
US ambassador to Israel has said there are surprises up their sleeve, and we'll know more about them on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, we're going to be
ominous.
Yeah, Mark White is staying with us to bring us any breaking news on that issue, of course, this morning. And we want to hear from you about that change to abortion legislation. Very significant yesterday, the first change to that law in 50 years. GBNews.com/your say to get in touch with us. First, though, here's Tatiana Sanchez with your news.
Bev, thank you. The top stories. Donald Trump says the US is not going to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, at least not for now, as Sir Keir Starmer played down the prospect of an imminent American intervention in the Middle East crisis. The US president earlier called for Iran's unconditional surrender and says he knows where the country's leader is. The US president abruptly left Sir Keir and allies at a major global summit amid the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, said nothing he'd heard from the US president suggested Washington was poised to get involved as Western leaders continue to press for de-escalation between the two longtime foes. In a post on Truth Social, the US president said he doesn't want to shoot missiles at civilians or involve American soldiers, but said that US patience is wearing thin. The conflict between the two nations have entered its sixth day now. Israel's saying this morning that it's begun a wave of attacks in the Tehran area. Israel's claimed to have hit Iranian nuclear and missile sites overnight, reportedly hitting the Qojir centrifuge site. Iran's nuclear chief has since claimed that the situation of their nuclear facility is good. The attacks took place on the capital, Tehran, and included 50 Israeli jets, it was claimed. Iran launched its own attacks on Israel, with sirens sounding twice overnight. Israel claims Iran is trying to make nuclear bombs. However, Iran has disputed the Israeli claims and said the site is just used for missile production. And inflation eased slightly to 3.4% in May, according to the data from the ONS. It rose to a 14-month high of 3.5% in April after a raft of bill increases hit households. The ONS said an error in vehicle tax data collected meant inflation should have been 3.4% in April, but it hasn't issued an official revision. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana. Very good morning. Welcome to Britain's Newsroom. It's a busy old morning here today. We're looking at events over in the Middle East to work out what Donald Trump might do next. Is he looking for a regime change in Iran? What is going to happen? What might it mean for you? But closer to home, significant vote in the Commons yesterday, changing the abortion legislation for the first time in years. Now, this is being largely, I think, misunderstood. There is outrage on social media. Labour have just made it legal that you can abort your baby until 40 weeks of full-term pregnancy. That has always been allowed. You can do that already in this country. That is not new. The difference is that if a woman orders pills to have an abortion online, she does it at home without a doctor's input, that will no longer be a criminal act.
And the downside of that, I mean, I'm very queasy about it anyway, but surely that is going to imperil a woman if there's no doctor involved. If she's taking pills to get rid of a fetus, unborn child at, say, 28 weeks, as opposed to where we normally expect 24 weeks, don't you need a doctor to look to make sure she's going to be OK? There's going to be a lot of bleeding. Yeah. There could be a lot of problems for the woman's health.
Very much so. There can be all sorts of complications.
Apart from the moral side, and then there's the whole moral debate as well, of course.
The moral debate, I'm a big believer in your body, your choice. Sure. Absolutely, and I know that's controversial. I don't bring a sort of moral judgment to this situation because I don't think there is any woman that takes abortion lightly. The vote passed yesterday, 379 votes to 137. It was a mass majority of 242. And of course, this has been brought about by the awful case during lockdown of the woman who ordered abortion pills online because she was too frightened to go into a hospital. She thought she was only a few weeks pregnant, 10 weeks, and it turned out that she was more than that, but not considerably more.
24, wasn't it?
No, I don't think she was. She wasn't even that she wasn't quite as far gone as that with the pregnancy. It was only a couple of weeks after that, but she then developed physical difficulties at home, which you can have, excessive bleeding. And when, I don't want to put you off your breakfast, but she realised that when the abortion had been completed, that the fetus was at higher gestation age than she thought she had been. And therefore, she went into hospital looking for sympathy, looking for support.
And she was arrested.
And she was arrested. And she luckily, the case was dropped, but it dragged on for a good 2 to 3 years for that woman. The police shouldn't be involved in a situation like that, should they?
Well, that's right.
What do you think? GBNews at Conference.
Really interesting debate. And we had an interesting discussion with Miriam Cates, of course, who's one of our presenters, because if she was in the Commons still, she'd have been one of those women voting against it.
And Miriam felt really strongly about the safety of women, and I think she made a really good point that since this legislation changed, since the law around being able to receive tablets in the post, which is what this is now, Miriam said there are 10,000 women who've ended up going to hospital because of complications.
I think the law should be, before those pills are prescribed, you should be able to have a face-to-face conversation.
I have to say I do think so. But also it's about educating young girls and women on their fertility so that these abortions don't happen in the first place, understanding their body, understanding the risks. And we're not doing any of that.
Now, we're going to talk about that a little later in the programme too. But first, Donald Trump, at every front page, has today got Iran on the front page. US poised to join Iran war is the front page of the Mail. The Sun says Trump's armada. And we know from the American ambassador to Israel, he says you're going to see some surprises on Thursday and Friday night. Well, that's ominous. Why don't we talk to Mark White, our Home Security Editor? This is ominous.
Yeah, but
we know Trump left the G7 early, poo-pooed the suggestion by Macron from France that it was about a ceasefire. It could be the complete reverse. Yeah. Right? Is he going to give them the bunker-busting bomb?
Well, it's certainly possible. I mean, everybody's tried to second-guess what Donald Trump is planning here. I think in his, very bones, he seems to be very averse to going into yet another war. So I'm sure that's
not against his whole ethos, doesn't
I think
it? There was no war on his watch the first term.
He would be very reluctant, I think, to embark on this. But let's wait and see. I mean, it may be the kind of bellicose statements that you often get from Donald Trump aimed at basically providing a very, very stark warning to the Iranian, well, it's undoubtedly that as well, to the Iranian regime to now unequivocally surrender, give up your nuclear program to avoid what may well be coming down the pipeline. Whether that will actually involve the United States involvement in actually providing bunker-busting bombs or taking part in that mission, I'm not sure. But what we can say is that the US are actually involved at the moment. There have been for quite a few days now with their air defence destroyers in the region, and indeed Patriot missile batteries in the region, helping Israel take down drones and other sort of missiles heading towards Israel.
Just explain why the bunker-busting bomb is significant, Mark.
Well, you've got nuclear facilities where you can do so much in the way of sort of damage with the kind of bombs that Israel have. And they do have bombs that can penetrate below ground, but actually to get deep below ground, where a lot of these nuclear enrichment facilities are housed, deep inside mountains, and are like, you need those specialist munitions that the US have that can really penetrate deep down in. And even then, it's questionable whether they can get far enough down to actually make a significant impact on the enrichment facilities deep down. What they can do, of course, is, you know, bring almost a mountain down on top of them and block the entrances and exits to these facilities as well, which I think is what Israel has been doing.
Lock the scientists in too, bury them alive.
Well, and actually Israel's been going after the scientists anyway. I think at last count it was at least 14 nuclear scientists had been killed, often at their homes in Tehran, which is why, of course, we've seen civilian deaths as well in Iran.
I think an interesting angle on this is that Donald Trump stood as a peacemaker.
He did.
He absolutely he said, you know, I will end the war in Ukraine, I will end the war
He did it in the first day.
in the Middle East. He's obviously not done that. But what worries me, Mark, is that now he will be cast as a warmonger. But Netanyahu has left him with no choice, hasn't he? Hasn't he been manipulated by Benjamin Netanyahu in this situation?
Well, from Israel's point of view, obviously, they see as, you know, this imminent threat from a player in the region which has, over the decades, had its terrorist groups, its proxies in southern Lebanon, in Gaza, in Yemen, in Iraq and Syria, all aimed at sort of causing unrest, and particularly aimed at Israel in that region. The very thought of Iran getting hold of a nuclear weapon, as they claim, is something they cannot allow. So they see the breakdown of the nuclear talks between the US and Iran, which in classic Iranian obfuscation was going absolutely nowhere. It's clear that Donald Trump was very, very frustrated with that. Israel, whether it was with, you know, a sort of tacit agreement of Donald Trump or not, I don't know. But Israel went in, and we are where we are now, where clearly it's heated up to the extent where daily now multiple waves of attacks from both sides are going in to come back from the brink. Well, Donald Trump says the only way you can come back from the brink is if Iran actually says, OK, we realise the game's up, we will abandon our nuclear programme. This is the only thing that, according to Donald Trump, is acceptable. Having said that, then, it would be hard to imagine how he can't follow through with his threat to actually join in. If Iran says, sorry, mate, we're not going to give up our nuclear ambitions.
They're not going to, because their neighbour Israel, they say, is a nuclear power, and they want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. That's their mission. I can't see how they can back down.
Their backs against the wall. They're a revolutionary state. Fighting is in their very blood. So
we need to move on to a story closer to home this morning, Mark. A little bit more prosaic matter, but it's about free speech. We feel strongly about that. Liam O'Hanna, he's part of the Irish rap group Kneecap, in court this morning.
Yeah, I think we can maybe bring you some live shots from Westminster Magistrates Court. You can see they're just over my shoulder. The images there of Westminster Magistrates Court, where a very significant number of people have turned up in support of Liam O'Hanna. He is, as you say, one of the trio from this rap group, Kneecap. He was part of an investigation by the Metropolitan Police, launched in April after a number of videos came to light, which effectively showed its alleged Kneecap giving giving support to Hamas, Hezbollah, calling for the death of MPs, in particular Conservative MPs, something that the band have always denied. But following that investigation, just last month, on the 31st of May, the charges were levelled against Liam Ohana, a charge under the Terrorism Act of displaying a flag for Hezbollah, which is, of course, this southern Lebanon-based group that's prescribed in this country, that is a group that is outlawed basically as a terrorist organisation, and in doing that, in unfurling this flag at a concert, which was last November, we're told, in Kentish Town in North London at the O2 Forum in Kentish Town. It's alleged that this was providing support for a prescribed organisation, for a terrorist group. So that is the charge that Liam Ohana is facing as the crowd outside Westminster Magistrates Court wait for this young man to arrive to face that terrorism charge. The band have said, and he has said through his lawyers, that they vehemently deny any support for Hezbollah and that they will fight the allegations against him. So this is Liam Ohana, expected any minute now at Westminster Magistrates Court to answer that very serious charge under the Terrorism Act.
OK, Mark, thanks for that. We'll keep you abreast of that. Now, still ahead, the Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood. Gosh, who'd have thought it? She's accused the European Court of Human Rights of blocking Britain's ability to deport foreign criminals. Who'd have thought it?
But up next, find out why Scotland's bin bags could very soon become England's problem. But first of all, if you want to have a look at some holiday sun temperatures and book yourself a nice trip away, here are the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
The heat wave across Portugal, Spain and France is going to continue to build for the next couple of days. We're looking at temperatures in the mid to high 30s, possibly 40 Celsius for a few places. And with that heat, there's a risk of some hefty showers across Portugal and Spain. Some thundery downpours are possible. A few showers also possible further east, affecting Italy and into Greece and Turkey. But actually, through the outlook period, as we go towards the weekend, it's looking largely sunny for many and staying pretty hot.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should we be paying more for the BBC, do you think?
Yes, in the short term. It's for a cost of a cappuccino a week. You don't only get all the television channels, you get all the radio channels, local news, you get the websites, you get World Service, a significant amount of that. You've got a vast range of things. It's not just a television licence. And the BBC licence fee, in real terms, has gone down about 40% in 15 years. What I think we need is two things. One is an immediate increase, significant increase, so we stabilise the situation.
Go on, how much, Roger? What's the fee?
Hold on.
Tell me how much.
Then, secondly, hold on. We need to have a proper debate publicly about whether we want public service broadcasting, how we want to deliver it, and how we want to pay for it. The BBC has cut as much as it can. We should now have a public debate about what we want.
OK. All right, the BBC's cut as much as it can. I mean, grief. I would love to try to see the BBC try to operate on the kind of budget.
I thought you were chairman, objective chairman here. It was a head-to-head with this lady, and you were going to be an objective chairman.
Yeah, well, you decided not to answer any of my questions. But anyway, June, I'll put this one to you. Well, what do you think about the money?
Yes.
June, what do you think about the money being paid for the BBC? Should we pay more?
In 2020, you lost 80, let's have a look, 80,000. And then by 2023 to 24, that went up to 500,000 licence fees not being paid. That's because they don't want the product. A lot of the reason is the biased side of the news, which is why people watch GB News. The programme making, I can understand the creative part of it, but what you've got to look at from the public's point of view is they pay their licence whether they're using all those facilities or not.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back now. The SNP is set to dump up to 100 truckloads of rubbish into England every day after a landfill ban.
But when they brought in the landfill ban, they hadn't taken the precaution of building enough incinerators to manage the waste, and it could be 600,000 tonnes of waste in England the first year. Let's speak to the Scottish Tories Energy and Environment spokesman, Douglas Lumsden. Douglas, with all respect, we don't want your rubbish. Can you keep it in Scotland, please?
I wish we could, Andrew. This is a farcical story. It's typical of the SNP's crazy approach to net zero. You know, just as they want to stop producing oil and gas in Scotland and continue to import it from elsewhere, the SNP are now planning to ban landfills in Scotland while sending all the rubbish south of the border. You know, it is a crazy thing to do, that we're going to put all this trash on diesel lorries and move it elsewhere. It doesn't make any sense.
So it's causing pollution as well, because, as you say, 100 lorries a day, every day, belching out all those fumes. It's incoherent.
No, it just completely doesn't make sense. And this is all down to SNP's incompetence. They announced this ban was meant to be in place in 2021. They had to delay it, but the infrastructure's still not there at all. So, you know, the SNP often talk about boosting exports. I just didn't think it was going to be exporting rubbish that they had in mind. It is absolutely unbelievable.
Somebody's going to be making money out of this, Douglas. Who does well out of this farce?
Well, I guess it'll be waste companies south of the border. They'll be rubbing their hands at accepting all this rubbish from Scotland. And could you imagine the SNP's outrage if it was the other way around? If rubbish was coming from England up to Scotland, you know, all the SNP flag waving zealots would be there at the border, sort of blocking all these trucks. It just is unbelievable what is happening.
And this is because of methane, just so people understand what it is. So the black bin bags full of household rubbish, which would include vegetable peelings, etc. They will decompose and they will create methane, which the SNP says is a very dangerous greenhouse gas. So we can't have it. Surely they haven't there's no forward planning here, is there?
No, that's the key thing. You know, so introducing the landfill ban, OK, it was fine, but you have to have the infrastructure there to deal with it in other ways. And, you know, there was meant to be energy from waste plants built to cope with all this rubbish, but they've been years late. And so this is completely down to the SNP's bad planning. And,
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Douglas.
Somebody should pay the price for that.
Thanks so much. Conservative MSP Douglas Lumsden there. And Gillian Martin, the SNP's Climate Action and Energy Secretary, has said the reason for the incineration gap is due to outside factors, particularly inflation and the cost of building them.
Well, We've
got plans for more incinerators with energy from waste schemes to come on in the next year, over the next 3 years. So it's a temporary situation.
3 years is not temporary.
Wonderful weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a very warm and sunny day again for most of us, but not quite everywhere, because again in the north there's a bit more cloud and a little bit of rain at times. Nothing especially heavy, but just a few showery bursts here and there. For most places though, like I said, a decent dry day, lots of blue sky on offer, just a little bit more cloud perhaps across parts of East Anglia, maybe Kent at times, but even here some decent bright sunny breaks through the day as well. With some decent decent sunshine on offer. Temperatures are rising, mid to high 20s quite likely. So feeling very warm, if not hot for most places, just a bit fresher towards the north. Then as we go through this evening, we have a bit more cloud across Northern Ireland to end the day, and that's because there's a weak front pushing through. That's going to feed into Scotland as we go through this evening and overnight. So a bit of rain out towards the western parts of Scotland. Further east, staying drier, but a few showery bursts can't be ruled out. Meanwhile, across Northern Ireland, mostly dry once that front has pushed through, and even as it does, it's not going to bring a huge amount of rain. And then across the bulk of England and Wales, a dry end to the day with lots of late sunshine as well. Overnight, like I said, that front does push its way into some western parts of Scotland, bringing some drizzly rain at times. Elsewhere, whilst there will be some cloud here and there, most places staying dry, most places having clear skies, but it is going to be another relatively warm night. Some places holding up around 15 or 16 degrees. So pretty warm start to the day tomorrow, and it is going to be another warm and sunny day for many as well. Plenty of sunshine on offer yet again, just a bit more clouds still across northern parts as that front continues to edge its way across parts of Scotland, and again a little bit of rain out towards the Western Isles in particular. Temperatures on Thursday likely to be even higher than today. We're looking at highs of around 28 or 29 Celsius, but we have even hotter weather to come as we go into the weekend, low possibly mid-30s.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Store.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Tonight, starting from 8, a lane closure will take place on the southbound A483 near Rosla-Norcragog due to scheduled resurfacing maintenance work. This is expected to last several hours and may affect traffic flow considerably. Meanwhile, rail passengers are facing significant disruptions on cross-country trains, which are impacting numerous important routes across the national rail network. Furthermore, South Western Railway is experiencing major delays affecting services between Basingstoke and Eastleigh, the Salisbury route, and the line connecting Guildford and Woking. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
10 o'clock on Wednesday, the 18th of June, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
It feels like it, doesn't it? Are we a step closer to another world war?
After another night of strikes between Israel and Iran, American President Donald Trump has issued an ultimatum: surrender unconditionally or pay the price. Now, this comes as an Iranian official says that any intervention from the US would be a recipe for all-out war.
Abortion has been decriminalised in the most historic vote for 50 years. MPs have voted to ensure women will not be prosecuted for ending their pregnancy at any point up to birth without a doctor's approval.
And will Keir Starmer use visas to solve the asylum crisis? Countries refusing to take back asylum seekers could face sanctions on their visas. The Prime Minister spoke to Christopher Hope and GB News.
Looking in a much more smart way at the way we deal with visas, perhaps more transactional, you might say, which is looking at the countries that we have visa arrangements with and asking ourselves, are there enough preventative measures?
Another delay. The Prime Minister has halted the high-speed train line link between London and Birmingham, HS2, and has accused the Tories of wasting £37 billion of public money.
And live pictures here from London. Liam O'Hanna, a member of the Northern Irish band Kneecap, will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court any moment over terrorism charges. A man with an Israeli flag who turned up to that crowd we're looking at on the screen here, very pro-Palestine. Well, that man has been removed from the crowd.
Feeling hot, hot, hot. UK temperatures are going to hit 33 degrees centigrade. Can we do it in Fahrenheit too, please, for us oldies? This weekend, with warning from the Met Office that heat waves could be above 40 centigrade in the future. And they say, of course, you've guessed it, climate change.
So we have that live footage from outside the court this morning, that Kneecap case. Mark White, just bring our viewers and listeners up to speed of why this is such a political scene.
Well, absolutely, you're right there. To say that it has become a real political battle, with lots of people who are libertarian-minded, but also, you know, those who are from the music industry saying that there needs to be freedom of expression. And you can see a very large crowd. I've never actually seen it quite as busy outside Westminster Magistrates for quite a while, even when we had the appearance of top celebrities such as Hugh Edwards last year when he was appearing in court as well. A very significant crowd, and there was a little bit of a scuffle just before Liam O'Hanna arrived there when a solitary supporter of Israel walked into the crowd. The crowd was cheering and jeering and shouting and calling for the police to remove him for his own safety, and he was removed. But Liam O'Hanna has now gone into Westminster Magistrates Court. These things are normally very short hearings. They never normally last more than about 15 minutes or so. It might take him a while to get things sorted out, just depending on what he needs to discuss with his legal counsel. But he faces a charge under the Terrorism Act that dates back to November of last year at the O2 Forum in Kentish Town that relates to the unfurling of a Hezbollah flag that, under the Terrorism Act, it, according to the authorities, showed that this young man was showing support for a proscribed organisation, because Hezbollah, this group that is based out of southern Lebanon, is a proscribed organisation, a terrorist organisation in this country. You remember, of course, that and we can see now as we've just re-racked and played that footage. He's come in face covered as he goes into court there. I mean, that's part of the sort of get-up that you get from this rap trio where they have the balaclava with the Irish tricolour on, that often they will never take off. He's going to have to take it off, though, as he goes through security. There's no way you get through security wearing a balaclava like that. But while he's in public there, he's covering his face. as he goes into court. So, as I say, this investigation was launched in April of this year after a number of videos came to light. Those videos were allegedly showing members of this band showing support for Hezbollah, Hamas, and making threats against Conservative MPs, something that the band members have denied. In fact, this charge that Liam Ohana is now facing is something that those band members vehemently deny. They say that they will defend Liam Ohana against these charges. So as I say, what normally happens at the Magistrates' Court is it's your first appearance in court since being charged. He was, remember, charged on the 31st of May. You'll appear. It follows a very strict formula. They stand in the glass-fronted dock. They confirm their name, their address, their date of birth. The charge is read out to them. There's a little bit of toing and throwing between the magistrate and the lawyer, and then they usually set a date for a Crown Court hearing. Because this is absolutely a serious indictable offence, it will be referred up to the Crown Court. So a date for his first Crown Court appearance will then be given out in court. He will be, I'm sure, granted bail, and then to a date to go back to the Crown Court, probably the Old Bailey. It's often the Old Bailey.
All right, Mark, that's Mark White, and we'll keep you up to date on that, particularly when Mr Hanna leaves the court, presumably in his balaclava. Bev, with lots of people coming in with, by the way, I think Kneecap have lost so many gigs because of this controversy.
They weren't, well, presumably they're on hold until this is all over. Who knows? Harry. Morning, Harry. Good-sized crowd there outside the court. He says, shame they didn't feel the same about Lucy Connolly and her free speech.
Remind people who Lucy is.
Oh, Lucy Connolly is the mother who was banged up for 31 months, Mark White, you remember, for a tweet that she put out, a Facebook post, actually, in the aftermath of the Southport riots, saying, you can burn down the hotels for all I care, which she quickly deleted when she realised she'd been an idiot.
And she lost her appeal too.
She lost her appeal.
There's no doubt that was a severe sentence handed down.
Very severe.
As part of a process, of course, that was effectively all about, you know, handing down significant punitive sentences in the hope that that would be a deterrence. But I think there are many people now that feel when they see others that actually have been charged and found guilty of assaults and sexual offences who've never gone to prison.
Ian says lots of old crusties there outside the court. Are these the same tribe wanting migrants to be here? Where are the police at the Westminster Court Centre, says Paul. Andy.
And I wonder if there were any Hamas banners and flags amongst that.
I was looking, I didn't see any. I did see lots of Irish tricolours and Palestinian
flag. So obviously he was there to provoke trouble, but he's free to be there. Why can't he be there?
It is. It's quite provocative going in and amongst that group.
But I wonder if there are Hamas there, because this shower, rent-a-mob I call them, they often protest near my tube station in North London, and they make vile anti-Semitic statements, and the police stand by and do nothing. And I say to the police every time, why don't you stop this?
Well,
they never do.
Morning, Susan, there is the proof that these pro-Palestine protesters are paid by somebody else to be there. To look at how many old biddies are there, just with their placards, as if they've heard of Kneecap.
Yes.
It's all a setup.
I'd never heard of Kneecap till this controversy.
Well, they're not there as Kneecap fans, are they? I hadn't either.
No.
But actually, they are. They would say they are there because they think they are in defence of Palestine, and that the bombing has been disproportionate.
Now, moving on, British MPs have voted, it's a very significant vote, the most important in 50 years, to decriminalise abortion. It's the biggest change in reproductive rights, certainly in almost 60 years, actually.
So the current law in England and Wales states that abortion is illegal but allowed up to the first 24 weeks of pregnancy, and beyond that in certain circumstances, such as if the woman's life is in danger.
So what's changed? Let's talk to the Chief Executive of the British Pregnancy Advisory Service, Anne Ferrady. Anne, good morning to you. Why is what happened yesterday so significant in abortion social law?
First, I hate ever correcting anyone, but I'm no longer involved with British Pregnancy Advisory Service.
We'll sack the producer for that.
No. It's just that I'm one of those old timers who's retired now. So, but I have written extensively on abortion, and I have campaigned for decriminalisation, and I think that it's extraordinary that there's this amount of controversy against what actually seems to be a very humane change in the law, because simply all that's happened is that the law, a law that is more than 100 years old, has been changed so that a woman can no longer be convicted of a criminal offence for ending her own pregnancy. And that's simply the change that there's been. I would like to see abortion fully decriminalised. I would really like for doctors not to be convicted of carrying out an abortion when it's at the request of the pregnant woman, but that's not where we are at the moment.
And what about the point this law change means that a woman, say hypothetically, we have to talk hypothetically here, perhaps she decides because of whatever the issue is to terminate her own pregnancy. She does it herself. She gets pills. She doesn't have to have a face-to-face appointment with a doctor. But with no medical assistance, she could be putting herself in serious jeopardy.
Well, absolutely, she could. And my point really would be that I don't think that any woman in her right mind is going to choose to try to end her pregnancy at later stages without medical supervision. Why would anyone want to do that? The position that women are in at the moment is that they can obtain these drugs for use in early pregnancy at home in circumstances when it's completely safe. The women who have been criminalised and have been convicted for doing it outside of the law are those women who have acted because they haven't been able to, or they haven't felt able to obtain medical help because they fear that for some reason or another their abortion would not be permissible. Now, really what we should be looking at is creating the circumstances where any woman can seek medical help if she has a pregnancy that she feels that she cannot cope with. And no woman should be feeling that she should be trying to abort herself in circumstances when it should be unsafe. The big problem is that we always focus on the issue of abortion as though it's a kind of weirdly abstract thing, whereas what we should focus on is why a particular woman at a particular time in her life is looking to end a very specific pregnancy. It's not an abstract question. It's about context. And if a woman is 30 weeks pregnant and she's looking to take pills in a regimen that's designed for use in early pregnancy, then the question to ask is, why should she be doing that? Not a question about whether the abortion is simply right or wrong. It's about her circumstances, and it's about...
Sorry, Anne, I would love listening to you on this topic because you're so knowledgeable, but I just want to... Our audience is getting in touch about the case of Nicola Packer. So she was the woman in lockdown, too frightened to go to hospital. Yeah. She was a slightly older mum, so she thought that her period was late. She thought she was about... here we go. She thought she was less pregnant than she was. Let's put it in those terms. Yeah. And, and so she said that when she got to the hospital, when she realised that she'd actually delivered a baby, which was then a stillborn baby, she was frightened to tell the midwives what had happened because she knew she could be criminalised, even though it was a mistake in not understanding her cycle. That's what this law would change, so that when you present at the hospital, you can be honest with your carers about what might have happened if you've made a mistake.
This is exactly the case, and this is why I think that we just have to understand that managing a pregnancy that's unwanted for a whole number of reasons, where a woman is desperate to not be pregnant, it's not one of these things that is easily policeable by laws. I mean, even when the law says a woman's 24 weeks pregnant, it's a kind of legal myth. Yeah. It's actually described as a legal myth because pregnancy is dated from the first day of your last period when you couldn't possibly have been pregnant. So all of these things are kind of weird ways of trying to manage unwanted pregnancy that just simply aren't suitable. It should be a matter for a woman and her doctor to decide what they think is ethical and right and safe. And politicians are probably best out of it.
And just to leave it on a slightly more optimistic note, I'm sure we would very much agree, this starts with educating girls and boys at school about how to avoid an unwanted pregnancy in the first place, or to have a pregnancy if you want one. We're neglecting that side of education, aren't we, Anne?
We are definitely neglecting that side of education, and we're also neglecting education about what pregnancy means for a woman. The discussion online about this has just been insane. It's as though somehow abortion is a little bit like, I don't know, the discussion about trans or any other identity issues. No woman ever has an abortion to make an identity statement or to state that she believes a particular set of values. She does it because she knows she can't cope with a pregnancy. It's a really important issue. Any heterosexual woman who is straight and has sex with a man risks pregnancy. Contraception doesn't always work. Women don't always know that they're pregnant. And we have to be really aware of all of those facts before we go blundering in and make heavy statements about the rightness and wrongness of a woman's actions.
Yeah. OK, thank you so much. Former CEO of British Pregnancy Advisory Service and a woman with a lot of experience in this area, Anne Faridi there. You see, people are outraged. The outrage she's talking about, I've read that online. How can you terminate a baby late in pregnancy? As we said, vanishingly small numbers of women ever, luckily, are faced with that dilemma. But let me give you an example, because people go, if you find out at, say, 30 weeks that your baby has no brain, but it could be born alive with a beating heart and would live in a vegetative state for its entire existence, the very difficult, hideous decision is made at that point. Do you terminate that pregnancy? You still have to birth that baby. But is that not a more humane choice to give that woman as opposed to giving birth to a human being which will have no viable life or quality of life? It's a very difficult, it's ethical, biological, philosophical dilemma.
Fascinating. Now, it's our biggest cash prize to date. It could be yours. It's £54,321, which is basically £1,000 in your bank account every week for a whole year.
Yeah, what would you do with that? Well, here are all the details you'll need for a chance to make it yours.
The Great British Giveaway is now even greater, with your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. A totally tax-free £54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Imagine what you could do with that. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash, so make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck. Now, still to come, police and courts are failing to record data on the ethnicity of criminals.
Funny that.
Why might that be? And what difference would it make if you knew the ethnicity of criminals? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
French authorities first seized the Lady T, and that's an Eastbourne-based fishing vessel. And next, they find its skipper, Philip Edwards, €30,000 to release his boat. Now, the Lady T, operating legally under UK jurisdiction, was intercepted by a French patrol ship near the Somme Bay. Now, the incident has sparked massive outrage among British fishermen and is renewing calls for the government to stand firm against French overreach in national waters. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm now joining with Charlotte Edwards, who's the husband. Husband Philip is the skipper of the Lady T and is out fishing right now. Charlotte, welcome to the show. I've got to say, here at GB News, we are hugely supportive and appreciative of British fishermen and fisherwomen. Do a fantastic job. So if you're nervous about the interview, please don't be. I want to ask you how on earth this happened. I mean, there's been a lot of talk, for example, that the Lady T didn't have the correct paperwork, it was fishing illegally, and the French decided to pounce. What's the reality?
The paperwork just slipped through. It was an admin error. The other two boats had the permits, and unfortunately, his didn't at the time. He wasn't in as far in as they said he was. He was about 800 metres in their water. He wasn't near the 12-mile.
He was intercepted by the Pluvier. That's a French Navy ship. No, by the way, the sort of French Navy ships that just seem to give an escort to illegal dinghies coming into British waters, suddenly pouncing into action. The only boat they've managed to stop seems to be the Lady T.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Stop talking. Right, we're on the telly, gentlemen. Stephen Powell, Mike Perry, Andrew Pearce, Bev Turner, all with you to go through the big stories. Now, of course, Mike, there is only one really very big story globally, and that's...
And every front page, Mike, you don't often get that. Even the red tops, with the exception of the Mirror.
Exactly.
Everyone's gone on the same thing.
Well, they've got to, because this is the problem with newspapers these days. 5 minutes after a newspaper goes to print now, World War III could have broke now. So you've got to write what we used to call a predictive headline to try and make out that when it drops on your doorstep the next morning, oh, it happened overnight, we knew it was going to happen. But that's why newspapers now have to go online, because they're all sitting there now waiting for the interpretation of what the Israeli ambassador said about what's coming next. Thursday and Friday night, there's going to be a few tricks.
Going to see some surprises and tricks.
And he said that if you thought we were clever going around blowing people up because we managed to get into the pages in their pocket, wait till you see what's coming next. He is promising some kind of spectacular.
The trouble with predictive headlines is that in journalism, the classic is the Truman election in America, where the press actually had it's Dewey. And it wasn't.
No, it
But look, here's the interesting thing. America could have got involved earlier. At that particular time, there was no air supremacy over Iran. The Israeli Air Force now has total air supremacy.
Yes.
Therefore, it's almost safe for the Americans to go in. And what they will do is they'll bring in the bunker buster. Because at the moment, Natanz, the atomic energy enrichment
in the mountain,
we're so far down that only some of the American ordnance could actually reach it.
Yes.
Now the question is, I think everybody's asking, why on earth is Trump being so gung-ho here when he left Ukraine alone? He did virtually...
If you were Zelensky, you'd be scratching your head and saying, why didn't the American president get behind me?
Well, and he snubbed him at G7. He left before his meeting with Zelensky.
Absolutely. But look, here's the interesting thing. At the moment, we've got these 4 or 5 actually huge major conflicts taking place in the world at the present time. The question is, after the Ayatollahs, and I think the Ayatollah Khamenei will fall, because I think, don't forget, the population...
Well, maybe they would help the entire regime could fall. Well, the theocrats could be out.
Look how quickly it happened in Syria.
Have we learnt nothing?
No,
Have we learnt nothing?
At last, the voice of sanity and reason.
Honest to goodness, sometimes I wake up, not only does humanity not learn anything about the lessons of the past, but if we learn nothing about annihilating Middle Eastern countries, which all that means for the Brits
more immigration,
tons more people
you would hope,
wanting to come and live.
You would hope by now we'd learned after Libya, after Afghanistan, after Syria, you'd have thought by now that they've got some idea who they're going to put in charge, because Syria actually is turning out quite well. The guy who's now running Syria has become a bit westernised. He started doing deals with other Arab nations, and if that's a blueprint for what's going to happen in Iran, then everybody will want it to happen.
But it's easier for America too, isn't it, Mike? Because the migrants, the great swirl of migrants in the Middle East will go nowhere near the United States.
I totally agree. And also remember, there is an underbelly and undercurrent in Iran of Western feeling, which goes all the way back to the Peacock Throne. It goes all the way back to the days when the Shah were there, because the children, the grandchildren of people who lived in Iran under the Shah are very westernised, and they want to wear Western clothes. By the way, you mentioned the bunker buster bomb that's going to finish off Natanz. When it would all be over, guess where those B-2 aeroplanes are based? Chagos Island.
Diego Garcia.
Chagos Island, right?
Perhaps that's why he wanted to get rid of it a bit quick, because he didn't want to suck Britain into it.
Absolutely.
Remember the big...
I think you're crediting him with too much strategic intellect there, Andrew.
Back in the 80s, when America bombed Libya, Mrs Thatcher allowed them to refuel at British bases. There was the most awful row.
Mrs Thatcher also allowed American planes to leave UK bases and fly directly down to the Mediterranean, turn left. France wouldn't let the US planes fly over France to the Mediterranean.
Listen, let's talk about something closer to home. HS2, another delay. Is this a good or...
Unbelievable. Scrap it.
Scrap
it. Scrap it all. It should have been scrapped in 2010, when David Cameron had the chance. He inherited it, didn't he, from Gordon Brown?
It was Andrew Adonis' plan, big Adonis, the great transport guru. Where's he now?
It's in the House of Lords, obviously, but I mean, look, the ridiculous thing, from a West London perspective, at the moment, the projection for HS2 is it ends at Old Oak Common.
That's right.
And then there's a 1.5 2 mile gap before Euston. Now, unless you're going to have a travelator or a moving pavement or rickshaw.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Bikes.
Carry your flipping suitcases for a couple of miles.
For 2 miles.
That's right. But, Stephen, I don't wish to be unkind, but I'm afraid...
Oh, yes, you do.
No, by the time it opens now, you're not going to be here, pal, because it's going to be 2036.
I know. I'm being cybergenically frozen, mate, just so I can see it.
Stephen, you will still be here. Don't you worry about that.
On a serious point, it's yet another sign. We just can't do these major public sector infrastructure projects. We are rubbish at it.
Hang on a second.
China would have built it years ago.
We did the Channel Tunnel, and we did that on time. We did the Elizabeth line.
Yeah, but Mrs Thatcher...
That was under Thatcher.
We did the Jubilee
That was
line.
under Thatcher, my dear.
That was
under Thatcher.
I mean, it's so obvious, isn't it, that the idea of third runway at Heathrow, that was just a political trick.
What's happened to that, by the way? It's your part of the world, Steve.
Absolutely.
Is there any shovel in the ground yet?
The flight has been delayed, but...
Yeah, and after what's happened in the Air India flight, people will be even more nervous about third runway at Heathrow.
Of course they will.
They shouldn't be, but they will be.
Any any drop-off in air transport. Look, the thing about these major infrastructure projects, I think a lot of if you actually read the report that's actually being submitted to the Transport Select Committee, and Heidi Alexander's going to make a statement today, some of this stuff is moon-howlingly bonkers.
Yeah, of course it is.
Not just the bat tunnels, but the fact that they had a committee to discuss linking Old Oak Common with Euston, and it never met.
No, it never met, and it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
If I'd have inherited it, what I'd have done was, because of the levelling up plan, would to scrap everything from Birmingham to London and push it all up to Birmingham, Manchester.
Well, that's where it should have started.
100%.
It should have started in the Midlands to the north.
Of course it should, because all of the transport projects that come out of London don't allow people out of London. It sucks everything back into London.
And
sucks all the wealth into
what
London.
it should have been a west-east rail link across the Pennines, which was much
as you know,
better.
there is a Trans-Pennine Express at the moment, which is appalling.
It's shocking. I've never been on it.
There's also the Varsity line, the one that goes from Oxford to Cambridge. So there are some east-west ones. But look, I think, in all honesty, Mike, it would cost far more to scrap the damn thing now than it would be to actually...
the running costs alone are going to be enormous. And by the way, it is 2036 now, the projected date. How do we know we won't all be travelling by air helicopter by 2036? Trains might be extinct by 2036.
We could be propelled by hot air.
Well, we've got driverless cars coming in London.
Driverless cars.
Driverless cars.
Listen, mate, I'll not them down in the box, you tap them in the goal.
No, it's embarrassing, it's humiliating. We can't even get Wi-Fi on the train.
We look a laughing stock on the international stage if we cannot handle major civil infrastructure projects.
I quite agree. It's embarrassing.
The Pennine train route, by the way, it's like something out of the 1950s.
It is. It's like a living museum when you get on it. I know.
They're beach seats.
Gentlemen.
Sorry, Northerners.
You're not allowed to say gents anymore, by the way.
Well,
it's been disallowed.
What, I can't say gentlemen?
Apparently not.
Oh,
gents
I'll
is,
always say
apparently it's sexist.
Gentlemen.
I'll take it.
We're going to a lady now. Tatiana Sanchez is here with your headlines.
Probably can't say lady.
Beth, thank you very much. The top stories. Donald Trump says the US is not going to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, at least for now, as Sir Keir Starmer played down the prospect of an imminent American intervention in the Middle East crisis. The US president earlier called for Iran's unconditional surrender and says he knows where the country's leader is. Iran has said American intervention would be a recipe for all-out war. The US president abruptly left Sir Keir Starmer and allies at a major global summit amid the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. The Prime Minister said nothing he'd heard from the US president suggested Washington was poised to get involved as Western leaders continue to press for de-escalation between the two long-time foes. In a post on Truth Social, the president said he doesn't want to shoot missiles at civilians or involve American soldiers, but said that US patience is wearing thin. The conflict between the two nations has now entered its sixth day. Israel saying this morning that it's begun a wave of attacks in the Tehran area. Israel's claimed to have hit Iranian nuclear and missile sites overnight, reportedly hitting the Hojir centrifuge site. Iran's nuclear chief has since claimed the situation of their nuclear facility is good. The attacks took place on the capital, Tehran, and included 50 Israeli jets, it was claimed. Iran launched its own attacks on Israel, with sirens sounding twice overnight. Israel claims Iran is trying to make nuclear bombs. However, Iran has disputed the Israeli claims and said the site is just used for missile production. And inflation eased slightly to 3.4% in May, according to the Office for National Statistics. It rose to a 14-month high of 3.5% in April after a raft of bill increases hit households. Inflation was driven last month by increased food, furniture and household good costs. Chocolate prices in the UK rose at the fastest pace on record. The Chancellor says there's more to do, while Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says the inflation rate is deeply worrying for families. April's 3.4% inflation figure was initially published as 3.5%, but the ONS later said an error in some tax data it received meant the rate should have been lower. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me at 11.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a snapshot of the markets. The pound will buy you $1.3453 and €1.1695. The price of gold, £2,513.32 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 at 8,851 points. Done.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Still to come, senior Tory MPs are warning of an institutional cover-up as police and courts are failing to record data on the ethnicity of criminals.
And if you remember in the Louise Casey report this week, she expressed her astonishment that the majority of grooming gang men, their identity, their ethnicity was not recorded. And I think we probably know why that is.
Let's talk about that in just a minute. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a very warm and sunny day again for most of us, but not quite everywhere because, again, in the north there's a bit more cloud and a little bit of rain at times. Nothing especially heavy, but just a few showery bursts here and there. For most places, though, like I said, a decent dry day, lots of blue sky on offer, just a little bit more cloud perhaps across parts of East Anglia, maybe Kent at times, but even here some decent bright sunny breaks through the day as well. With some decent sunshine on offer, temperatures are rising, mid to high 20s quite likely, so feeling very warm if not hot for most places, just a bit fresher towards the north. Then as we go through this evening, we have a bit more cloud across Northern Ireland to end the day, and that's because there's a weak front pushing through. That's going to feed into Scotland as we go through this evening and overnight. So a bit of rain out towards the western parts of Scotland. Further east, staying drier, but a few showery bursts can't be ruled out. Meanwhile, across Northern Ireland, mostly dry once that front has pushed through, and even as it does, it's not going to bring a huge amount of rain. And then across the bulk of England and Wales, a dry end to the day with lots of late sunshine as well. Overnight, like I said, that front does push its way into some western parts of Scotland, bringing some drizzly rain at times. Elsewhere, whilst there will be some cloud here and there, most places staying dry, most places having clear skies, but it is going to be another relatively warm night, some places holding up around 15 or 16 degrees. So pretty warm start to the day tomorrow, and it is going to be another warm and sunny day for many as well. Plenty of sunshine on offer yet again, just a bit more cloud still across northern parts as that front continues to edge its way across parts of Scotland, and again a little bit of rain out towards the Western Isles in particular. Temperatures on Thursday likely to be even higher than today. We're looking at highs of around 28 or 29 Celsius, but we have even hotter weather to come as we go into the weekend, low possibly mid-30s.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Motorists on the A483 southbound near Roslin and Krugog should anticipate delays due to resurfacing work, with the road closed tonight from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. The M6 southbound between junctions 19 and 18 in Cheshire is experiencing lane closures due to a broken down vehicle. The A3 northbound remains blocked between the A322 and A320 after a vehicle struck a bridge. On the A30 westbound in Cornwall, traffic congestion is causing 10-minute delays, and on the trains, cross-country services between Basingstoke and Eastleigh face disruptions. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
10:37, this is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev.
Can't pick up any front page, I suspect, anywhere in the world today without saying Donald Trump is considering a direct strike on Iran after meeting with his military advisors.
So the American president has said that he knows the exact location of Iran's supreme leader and is calling for the country's unconditional surrender.
So let's talk to our favourite US journalist, Chapman Bell. Chapman, this isn't the Donald Trump that we went into the general election. This isn't the Donald Trump from the first term where he was proud of the fact there were no wars on his watch. He left G7 early, said he wasn't going back to negotiate a ceasefire. This is Donald Trump going to war?
We'll see. What is clear, and J.D. Vance actually made this clear as well, Trump has long been a major advocate of Iran not getting a nuclear bomb. And he's been pushing for diplomacy, and Trump, as Vance points out, he's been advocating for negotiations, but as Trump has said, his patience is wearing thin. And we know when Trump's patience starts to wear thin, things change. And he has changed in his approach from it beginning with the U.S. having no involvement, now to say we now have complete and total control over the skies over Iran, and saying that they know where Ayatollah Khamenei is and they're not going to kill him for now, is really ratcheting up that dialogue and becoming more hawkish.
What about the American people in all this, Chapman? Because obviously Donald Trump has been very much running a ticket of America first, is what he ran on, and he hasn't compromised on that. He seems to put America first in all these decisions. Do the American people want to get involved in what's going on in Iran at great expense to the taxpayer?
I think it's a lot like anything. You're going to have for and against. Also, a lot of times, people not thinking about what it involves particularly, but, gas prices are going to go through the roof. That's going to make a majority of Americans very unhappy. You also have a very divided Congress right now. You actually have bipartisan support for and against this. You also have a bipartisan legislation pushing to limit war powers. So you really have a mixed bag of for and against. And
So there's a move legislatively to stop a president having the power as commander-in-chief to order the bombing of Iran. It would have to go through Congress or the House of Representatives. Is that the plan?
Well, Congress has always had the power and the only power to declare war. However, that hasn't been used, I think, since World War II. Generally speaking, there is a way limited strikes and joining wars can always be done
by the president.
And whether or not President Trump goes into a full-fledged war, I mean, that's anybody's, we'll have to wait and see. But what is clear is patience is wearing thin, and maybe this is a tactic to bring them back to the negotiating table, to say, hey, the skies over you are controlled by us. We know where your supreme leader is. We haven't killed him for now. Maybe it is an attempt to bring things back to the negotiating table.
And I wonder how possible that could be, though. This is the issue. And to what extent do the other countries in that region get pulled into this? Because that is where we should probably all be a little nervous. And yet again, with war in the headlines, my teenager saying to me, are we going to go to war, Mum? Are we going to go World War III? Like, the fear amongst younger people in every country around the world is not to be underestimated.
But talking of the other countries, of course, Syria, greatly weakened, Lebanon, Hezbollah, smashed. The proxies have been almost destroyed by constant bombardment by Israel. Isn't that why Trump's moving with Israel? You strike while your enemy's at its weakest.
Potentially, yes. And there have been, the Houthis also in Yemen. There has been a deal made there. So maybe it is now a good chance. Israel did a strong job attacking Hezbollah. And, as you mentioned, Hamas has been really gutted in Gaza. So maybe it is the chance, or at least the possibility, to say, hey, what are you going to do now? Come and negotiate. I think what you have to decide, is the ultimate goal regime change, or is the ultimate goal stopping Iran from having a nuclear weapon capability?
I hope it's the latter. About stopping Iran having a nuclear facility rather than regime change, because what takes its place?
Well, and we all know what happens with regime change, what fills a vacuum. So I think that is probably a big focus, I would imagine, given history. How do you go into a situation like this without making it potentially worse?
Interesting, isn't it, too? Donald Trump's often referred to the assassination attempt he survived, and yet he's teasing us almost about the fact he could take out the supreme leader of Iran, who is the head of state.
Yeah, and I think when you get into talking about assassinations of heads of state, it's a very dicey game, and I think normally people steer clear of...
Yeah, even if he's an appalling old despot, he is the head of state.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not the president of the United States, so...
Yeah. And, of course, wasn't it under Obama that the relationship between Iran and America started to soften a little? And
well, there was a nuclear deal in place, but President Trump was very unhappy with this nuclear deal. However, now trying to advocate for a new deal, and that's been the focus of getting this deal signed and not having any U.S. military involvement in Iran, and ultimately staying out of most conflicts around the world.
Yeah. And of course, we saw Donald Trump leave early from the G7 summit in his usual way, saying this should be G8. If Russia had been allowed to join several years ago, we wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. How did that land with the public in America?
Well, again, you have, it's like anything. You have a really big population with a lot of mixed feelings, and some people, while they may not like Russia, do agree that maybe there should be more dialogue with Russia. You also have people who don't think Russia is all that bad. It's like anything. How does it sit? It's normally going to be along political divides, but you do have a little bit of pockets in both sides.
He's hugely involved in foreign policy, as is our Prime Minister here, and it's a criticism of our Prime Minister. He seems to be always abroad, and things are going horribly wrong here, in my view. Is that going to be a criticism that can be levelled at the President?
In what way?
That he seems to be becoming more and more preoccupied about Gaza, Iran.
Well, I think, there's always going to be issues that the American president has to deal with.
Isn't it about America first? What leave the rest of the world?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I think, on that. I mean, I'm not I don't have a crystal ball, but I think, yes, there are people who still think, the economy is the number one situation. They still want the focus on immigration. And, ultimately, I think the economy wins in most of the polls I've seen. And I think a war could affect that, or any involvement, particularly within the Middle East, does often have an effect on gas prices for Americans. And that might be something that is considered.
The other issue that I don't think anybody's talking about enough is whether there is any evidence that Iran are close to having a nuclear bomb. Tulsi Gabbard
has been saying it for 30 years.
Well, of course he has. But Tulsi Gabbard, who's the new head of national intelligence, she gave testimony in March where she said there is no evidence that Iran is close to building a nuclear bomb. Without that evidence, it raises serious questions as to why America would be getting involved. Is it just America forcing through regime change yet again?
Well, I think President Trump actually commented on that recently.
He said, I disagree.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't care what she said. I mean,
but he didn't bring out any evidence that they do have a nuclear bomb.
And it's long been considered. But also, you got to remember, a lot of these facilities are deep underground and quite secretive. And anybody who's developing a nuclear weapon without wanting people to know is going to try their best to keep it hidden. So whether or not they are, or if they are doing it for peaceful purposes, until there's actual proof, but I think, we've seen actual proof before with wars that has turned out to not actually be proof.
Weapons of mass destruction. So, we all think about that in this country.
So
that's what our Prime Minister told us.
I would suspect that's also something that's carefully thought about before any kind of intervention. But as U.S. officials point out, and other Israeli officials and people point out, that the only capable munitions of hitting this one facility, to possibly hit it with a conventional weapon, the United States is the only country that has that ability.
The bunker bomb.
Chapman Bell, thank you so much.
Really
we'll, of course, watch that situation very closely.
Got some holiday sun? Sounds like Bev needs some.
I need some.
Here's the forecast of our top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heat wave across Portugal, Spain and France is going to continue to build for the next couple of days. We're looking at temperatures in the mid to high 30s, possibly 40 Celsius for a few places. And with that heat, there's a risk of some hefty showers across Portugal and Spain. Some thundery downpours are possible. A few showers also possible further east, affecting Italy and into Greece and Turkey. But actually, through the outlook period, as we go towards the weekend, it's looking largely sunny for many and staying pretty hot.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we're in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 10:51. So GB News can reveal that 17,000 small boat migrants have arrived illegally to the UK so far this year.
Let's talk to the Deputy to Reform UK, Richard Tice. Richard, yeah, we're holding our head in our hands here. 17,000. We've got some really super weather now in the next few days. The Home Secretary apparently discovered only very recently that if it's good, fine weather, we get more migrant crossings.
Well, the total since the Labour government was elected is now over 40,000. To put it in context for your viewers and listeners, that's the equivalent of filling Stamford Bridge football stadium. And we've just forecast today that by this time next year, the equivalent of Wembley Stadium will have arrived illegally over the Channel since the general election. So just think about that. Wembley Stadium within 12 months of illegal migrants filling up our hotels, filling up our housing. And as we're now learning, based on the Baroness Casey review, regrettably, are involved in some hideous and heinous crimes that authorities want to deny and cover up.
Yeah, she did say, didn't she, in that report, Richard, that a disproportionate number were foreign nationals and asylum seekers. So the migrants that are crossing the Channel today could be, when they get here, could be on the verge of creating serious crime.
Indeed, I was the person who exposed the Albanians who were coming over as part of criminal gangs to get involved in drug dealing and money laundering under the guise of barbershops, which I was lambasted at the time for saying, but now actually has turned out to be completely true. So, you know, we have to talk about these difficult things, we have to be honest, and we have to have the data, and the data reveals some very, very bad things, which is that some very bad people are coming across the English Channel, pretending to be coming from a war zone, when actually they've got very bad, ill intent. And I think the British people, I think the anger is growing rapidly.
I don't know whether you've seen the work that Patrick Christys has been doing on his show, Richard, but he has literally, and his team, been getting in touch with people via social media, tracking them down. He makes it look easy. Why are our authorities just not doing that?
Because they're incompetent muppets, frankly. And the idea that we're sending hundreds of millions of pounds to the French gendarmerie in order to give them photography lessons, because they don't seem to be doing anything else than just photographing these boats leaving. I just repeat, because I have actually read the law, I understand the law, the French have a legal obligation under the 1982 UN Convention of the Law at Sea to pick up these boats and take them back to France. They're failing in that obligation. We're entitled to do the same and take them back. The Belgians have done it. They refused to do it.
Always good to see you. We have run out of time. You got your message across loud and clear. Quick break for the weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Plenty of fine weather for many of us today, and with lots of sunshine, it is going to feel pretty warm, and it's all because we have high pressure dominating the story. That being said, there is a weak frontal system toppling just to the north of that high pressure, and so there will be a bit more cloud at times and a little bit of rain pushing through across parts of Northern Ireland maybe, and also into western Scotland, a few showery bursts too. But otherwise, like I said, it's a dry story with lots of sunshine, especially across much of England and Wales, and with that sunshine, temperatures rising. It is going to feel very warm, if not hot, for many of us. Mid to high 20s, quite likely towards the south. A fair few degrees fresher than this further north, and around some coastal parts too, particularly towards the east, if there's a little bit more cloud lingering as well. As we go into this evening, still a couple of showers continuing across some parts of northern Scotland, and then towards western Scotland, some thicker cloud as that weak front that I mentioned pushes its way in. That front will be clearing away from Northern Ireland, but staying quite cloudy for many as we go through the end of the day here. Meanwhile, for England and Wales, for many places away from the far north, well, lots of late sunshine to look forward to. A fine evening ahead. A bit of a north-south split as we go overnight, cloudier towards the north, but even here I am expecting some breaks to develop and just a few spots of rain perhaps towards the Outer Hebrides. Otherwise, for England, Wales and later on Northern Ireland, lots of clear skies, but it's not going to turn particularly chilly. In fact, it's going to be a pretty warm night for many of us, mid to high teens in some places towards the south. And then tomorrow, still some cloud across parts of Scotland, a swathe of cloud pushing its way northwards and a bit of rain affecting some far western parts. Away from this, though, again, lots of sunshine on offer, and with that sunshine, temperatures are likely to get even higher than today. In fact, tomorrow looks set to be the first day that we're going to exceed 30 Celsius in the UK this year.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash, so make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 11 o'clock on Wednesday, the 18th of June, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. So the American President Donald Trump has issued an ultimatum to Iran: surrender unconditionally or pay the price. This comes as an Iranian official says that any intervention from the United States would be a recipe for all-out war.
Abortion decriminalised. MPs have voted to ensure women will never face prosecution for ending their pregnancy at any point up to birth. Important here, without a doctor's approval.
And visas to live in this country may be used as a bargaining chip. Countries refusing to take back asylum seekers could face sanctions on their visas. The Prime Minister spoke to Christopher Hope and GB News.
Looking in a much more smart way at the way we deal with visas, perhaps more transactional, you might say, which is looking at the countries that we have visa arrangements with and asking ourselves, are there enough preventative measures?
Off the rails. Sir Keir Starmer is halting the high-speed train line, certainly for now, between London and Birmingham, and he's blamed the Tories for £37 billion worth of wasted taxpayers' money.
And are we about to enter into a Scottish waste war? Scotland is going to send 100 trucks of rubbish to England every day because they have a landfill ban next year and they haven't got capacity to incinerate it. So it's going to end up down here in England.
Sun's out, guns out. UK temperature will hit 33 degrees centigrade this weekend. Is it too hot for you so far? Let us know.
Do you know what sun's out, guns out means?
No.
I didn't think you did. I love it when they give you script that you have no idea.
No idea, and I thought that is obviously some wit. Is it a music? Is it music?
Andrew Pearce, your guns. Make your biceps strong. Make it strong. Come on, if
Here,
it's
this
not...
one. This one's better.
Oh, apparently his right arm is stronger than his left arm. So you've got a very strong bicep on that arm, right? So when the sun is out this afternoon, you've got to wear a vest and get your biceps out. That's what that means. Sun's out, guns out.
I thought it was something to do with a band.
No.
I'm not with it, am I?
I would say Grandad, but you can't say that. Somebody got in trouble in the court yesterday for referring to somebody at work as being like their grandma. I like grandmas.
And you can't say gents either, apparently.
You can say what you like here, frankly.
You can.
We are very, very difficult to offend, which is just as well. At gbnews.com/yoursay to get in touch with us. This morning, here's Tatiana Sanchez with your news.
Bev, thank you. The top stories. Donald Trump says the US is not going to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, at least for now, as the Keir Starmer played down the prospect of an imminent American intervention in the Middle East crisis. The US president earlier called for Iran's unconditional surrender and says he knows where the country's leader is. Iran has said American intervention would be a recipe for all-out war. The US president abruptly left Keir Starmer and allies at a major global summit amid the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. The Prime Minister said nothing he'd heard from the US president suggested Washington was poised to get involved as Western leaders continued to press for de-escalation between the two longtime foes. In a post on Truth Social, the president said he doesn't want to shoot missiles at civilians or involve American soldiers, but said that US patience is wearing thin. Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge spoke to GB News.
And if the US, together with Israelis, take the view that intelligence means the only way to stop it is to take decisive military action, then that's something we would not in principle be opposed to. We do recognise the scale of that threat.
The conflict between the two nations has now entered its sixth day. Israel saying this morning that it's begun a wave of attacks in the Tehran area. Israel's claims to have hit Iranian nuclear and missile sites overnight, reportedly hitting the Hojir centrifuge site. Iran's nuclear chief has since claimed the situation of their nuclear facility is good. The attacks took place on the capital Tehran and included 50 Israeli jets, it was claimed. Iran launched its own attacks on Israel, with sirens sounding twice overnight. Israel claims Iran is trying to make nuclear bombs. However, Iran has disputed the Israeli claims and said the site is just used for missile production. The members of the Irish band Kneecap have arrived at Westminster Magistrates Court. Band member Liam O'Hanna was charged last month for displaying the Iran-backed terror group's flag at a concert. That's Hezbollah. The band denies the allegations and claims the act was taken out of context. Kneecap described the prosecution as a witch hunt in a post on X last night. A crowd of supporters had surged around the entrance of the court as the band arrived, with some also entering the lobby. Elsewhere, inflation in the UK eased slightly to 3.4% in May, according to the Office for National Statistics. It rose to a 14-month high of 3.5 in April, after a raft of bill increases hit households. Inflation was driven last month by increased food, furniture and household good costs. Chocolate prices in the UK rose at the fastest pace on record. The Chancellor says there's more to do, while Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says the inflation rate is deeply worrying for families. April's 3.4% inflation figure was initially published as 3.5, but the ONS later said an error in some tax data it received meant the rate should have been lower. Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury James Murray spoke to GB News.
Inflation is broadly stable, and this underlines the importance of the decisions the government has taken to stabilise the public finances, to get inflation under control after the double-digit inflation we saw under the previous government. But we know there's more to do, and our number one mission is to put more money in the pockets of working people. And that's why at the spending review last week, we extended the £3 cap on bus fares. We've extended free school meals to a further 500,000 children. We're continuing to introduce free breakfast clubs at schools across the country, and we're investing in every part of the country to make working people better off.
Plans for cuts to benefits, which will impact more than 3 million households, will be published today as the government faces a battle to convince dozens of Labour MPs to back them. Liz Kendall, the Welfare Secretary, has set out proposals to cut £5 billion from the welfare budget, which she said is unsustainable and trapping people in welfare dependency. Disabled people claiming the personal independence payment, with the increased costs of daily living, face having their awards reviewed from the end of next year. An estimated 800,000 current and future PIP recipients will lose an average of £4,500 a year, according to government assessments. The government will confirm that the opening of HS2 will be delayed beyond the planned date of 2033. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander is expected to tell Parliament today there is no reasonable way to deliver the high-speed railway on schedule and within budget. The project has already suffered repeated delays and soaring costs despite being scaled back. Housing and Planning Minister Matthew Pennycook says there were serious problems with HS2 in terms of accountability and costs. MPs have voted to decriminalise abortion in England and Wales. The amendments to the Crime and Policing Bill abolishing the prosecution of women for terminating their pregnancy at any stage passed by 379 votes to 137. It represents the biggest shake-up in reproductive rights for almost 60 years. Labour MP Tonia Antionazzi, who tabled the so-called New Clause 1, said it would ensure women don't face investigation, arrest, prosecution or imprisonment in relation to any pregnancies. She said the current Victorian laws had been used against vulnerable women. And an American diplomat who was driving on the wrong side of the road when she caused a fatal car crash could and should have been arrested, a review has concluded. Motorcyclist Harry Dunn, who was 19, died in 2019 after being hit by a car driven by Anne Sekulis, who weeks later left the UK under diplomatic immunity laws. An independent report has criticised Northamptonshire Police's handling of the investigation, with Mr Dunn's family saying they'd been failed by the very people we should have been able to trust. Northamptonshire Police has apologised, saying it failed to do the very best for the victim. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. Now, Sarah Vine is with us and she's written a book all about her life at the heart of politics titled How Not to Be a Political Wife.
So she was married, if you're not aware, you probably do, to Michael Gove, who had many jobs in the, well, I think he was the longest-serving cabinet minister. He was under Cameron, he served under May, all of them.
Boris Johnson.
Except Truss. And he was inside, Sarah was there too. And you've written this extraordinary book, How Not to Be a Political Wife.
With a woman face down on the floor.
Who is that woman face down on the floor? Is it you?
No, it's not actually me. When they did it, I thought it was such a funny cover. And then they said, do you want to be photographed face down on the floor? I said, I don't think there's any need for that. I think that's fine.
How were you not a good political wife?
Oh, I was just absolutely rubbish at it. I can't keep... I mean, I say what I think. I won't be told. I don't obey. I'm not, you know...
David Cameron famously said to you... when your husband was coming out for, as opposed to leaving the European Union, face raging, old Etonian rage, get your husband under control. That's your job as a political wife.
Yes, exactly.
He was fighting for his political survival.
And I was quite bad at it, really. Also, being a journalist doesn't really help because, as you know, journalism and politics is like oil and water. Yeah. They don't really mix. And you know, journalism is fundamentally a sort of outsider profession. So, and politics is all about insider stuff, and it's all about what goes on in the back rooms and behind closed doors, and you know, all the little deals that get made. And you know, everyone else has written about. You know, so Michael entered politics in 2005, and then he was pretty, you know, in the forefront of the coalition government, and then subsequently, and everyone's sort of written about that period. David Cameron's written a book, Kate Ford wrote a book, Sacha Swire wrote a book, and I just thought I'd just do my version of it.
And is it a different version?
It is. It's much more. I think it's much more emotional. It's very emotional. It's much more about the personalities and the feelings, which, you know, politicians don't really talk about their feelings very much, do they? But for me, it's about the personalities and the people behind the politics. And I wanted to sort of give readers a sense of what it's like to be in that world and what people are like in that world. And also just to remind people that politicians are people at the end of the day, you know. And
does it also show how hard it is to have real friendships in politics, Sarah?
Yes,
because you were very close to David and Samantha Cameron.
Yes.
And because your husband made the cardinal sin of not backing Cameron in the referendum, friendship over, and you were frozen out by everybody.
Frozen out by everyone. So, you know, 2016 referendum, you know, that was it. That was the end of that life. And it was very abrupt. It was sort of overnight. And, you know, it was...
That's hurtful.
Well, I think, you know, I mean, part of me really understands it because obviously it was traumatic for them and it destroyed their world too in a different way.
Well, they should have thought about a campaign.
But, you know, I think that, you know, the referendum was probably misguided, and also I don't think that Dave did the right thing walking away when he lost, because I think
called him a big man baby for that.
Yes, I did, and I do. And I think if he'd stayed on and just, you know, overseen a a sort of sensible transition, the Conservative Party would not have basically imploded as it has done. I mean, it still hasn't recovered.
No.
And it may never recover, actually, from that sort of seismic moment.
Yeah.
So these are kind of... Sorry.
I've been fascinated watching Dominic Cummings do various sit-down interviews recently talking about the theatre of Westminster and how the politicians are merely just puppets reading out scripts which are handed to them by civil servants. Was that your perception of it?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think Dominic has sort of civil servant derangement syndrome, which is fair enough. I mean, the civil service is a very difficult, sort of, quite very stodgy sort of organisation, and I understand why Dominic is frustrated with it.
Yeah.
Because he came up against it a lot, and he found it very, very, unmovable. And so, when you're trying to do difficult stuff in government, it's very annoying to have to come up against this sort of brick wall the whole time. I don't think that the idea that civil servants really just run the show is not... I wouldn't say that was my experience, no.
OK. What is life like not being a politician's wife?
Very quiet and peaceful.
Does it feel quite liberating, though?
It does. It is, yeah, you're absolutely right. It does feel quite liberating. It feels like, you can actually... I feel also... sort of, because I write for the Daily Mail, I feel I'm able to be more myself.
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
Do you think politics ultimately destroyed your marriage to Michael? You were married to him, you met him at the Times, where we all worked together many years ago.
Yes, I think that it did. I think that world is just... And also, I think we were particularly... we had a particular set of sort of situations that happened, and I think the referendum... Brexit was the thing, really. I mean, I know that you were saying earlier that a lot of people had the same
Yeah,
issue.
there's a survey come out today showing it's much better for relationships for longevity if you agree politically. But the issue that caused most problems in marriages about politics was the referendum.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just a very divisive moment, I think, for everybody. And I think that... it was for us. I think it was the fallout, and I think when it was quite sort of full on for us, quite traumatic in a way. And I think we both reacted in very different ways to the result, which was the sort of ostracisation and the complete change of. And I just wanted to run as fast as I possibly could away from politics, and Michael wanted to go back in and sort of fix it. And so there was a sort of divergence in. When you're marriage, you have to have the same goals really for it to work, don't you? You have to basically be on the same page. And I think we were just on different pages. But we just couldn't, we couldn't sort of square that circle.
You've got 2 kids. What do they think about Mum writing this book?
Well, they're in it.
Yeah.
They've been interviewed for the book.
Yeah.
So I've very much involved them in the book. And I told them I was going to do it, and I talked to them about it, and they were like, yeah, Mum, go for it. So, and they've read it, and... yeah, I mean, their contributions are actually fascinating. I mean, my daughter's quite brutal in some places about me. She's very honest. My son's slightly more kind of quiet, but very accurate insights.
Would they go into politics, either of them?
Well, I don't know. I mean, never say never.
Would you want them to?
I mean, I'd just want them to do whatever would make them happy, but I'm not sure politics would make them happy. And I think especially when you're young and you want to have a family, I think politics is very bad for families, young families in particular. It's very difficult for children. If your parent is in frontline politics, now I remember, for example, the year Beatrice started secondary school. Beatrice, my daughter, the year she started secondary school, that was the year that Michael had suddenly made the GCSEs harder. Can you imagine? You're the child in the playground, and your dad is responsible for making the GCSEs harder.
Sarah, who is a good political wife? Who fulfills what the establishment?
I think Samantha Cameron was very good at being
look pretty. Don't say anything controversial.
Well, she was just But the thing about that was that Dave was an excellent husband. So Dave was a very good political husband as well. So he was always very, very conscious that it couldn't be done without her, and so she was always sort of top of his list. I think that's I would there's one area I would never criticise Dave. She was always top of his list.
But they had money as well, didn't they? In the sense that they could have staff, so she could have her own career too.
Yeah, they had a different status, and I think also she has an incredibly large and supportive family who were very, very, on side and stuff. My family, no, not that way at all. So these are important, small things, but important things.
Did it come as a shock to your husband, ex-husband, to know that George Osborne said that he and Michael and David Cameron created him? Which is what you've written in the book.
I don't know. I haven't asked him about it.
Because it says when Osborne hears that Michael's going to back. Leaving the European Union. He couldn't do that because we created him.
Yeah.
These clever posh boys.
I think it was interesting. I was listening to George. George does a podcast with Ed Balls.
Yes.
And I was listening to that the other day, and Ed Balls asked him about that, and George said, "Yes, I probably would have said that." So,
Yeah.
What do you make of the role that Mrs. Starmer is playing as the first lady of this country?
She seems to be very successful,
very quietly.
invisible.
Yeah.
Yes, she's just keeping.
We see her at the Labour
backseat.
conference
Yeah.
and a big
Yeah.
state events like
Yeah.
Trooping the Colour or those sort of things.
Yeah.
That's all she does, and
Yeah.
she never speaks.
But I mean, I think that's fair enough. I think everyone has to do it in the way that works for them, and if that's what works for her, then that's what
I think the role model was Dennis Thatcher. He was marvellous.
Well, he was marvellous.
He was marvellous.
He just sat up upstairs in number 10 smoking, didn't
and
he?
drinking lots of gin and tonic and saying and going on. I remember when he was in India on some trip with Mr. Thatcher, shouting out of the room, "The population factor in this country is very high." Not the sort of thing you'd normally expect the Prime Minister's husband to say, but he was
But
fantastic.
it was a different time.
They were.
That you don't. There wasn't the internet. It wasn't quite as intense.
I make a prediction. This will be a bestseller, and also some of the stuff in there, Sarah, will be devoured for a long time by political historians because you have taken the lid off what goes on.
Yes, I mean it's just very honest. There are bits of it which are quite raw, and I know a lot of people will find that annoying, but I just thought if I'm going to write a book about it, I just have to be honest.
Yeah.
And people will disagree, and that's fine.
Yeah. Sarah Vine, how not to be a political wife.
And me and Thee are going to be at the what's that book fair?
The Neville Holt Literary Festival in
on
Market
Saturday
Harborough.
evening. Mark Harbour, I'm interviewing Sarah on Saturday.
My favourite line on the front of the book is from Plum Sykes, which says, "Sarah Vine is the Bridget Jones of politics," which I do think is
brilliant.
Really
rather
clever.
good. And we like Bridget Jones.
Good luck. Good luck with it, Sarah.
My big pants.
Thank you for coming in. Right. The hot weather is set to continue this week and into the weekend. Some parts of the UK could reach 36 degrees Celsius next Monday.
Can we have that in Fahrenheit,
We will
please?
find out.
Because I'm old.
I think it's over 90. A yellow heat health alert.
What do we need
Most
one of those
UK.
for?
Anna Riley is soaking up the sun in Scarborough. Good morning, Anna. Looking radiant there. How is life in sunny Scarborough this morning?
Good morning to you both. Well, it's feeling hot, hot, hot here. It's Britain's first seaside resort. It's been a spa here since the 1600s, with the Victorians coming here, and it's still as popular as ever. I'm just going to step out of the shot here just so you can see how glorious the front is here. We're on the South Bay. We've got people that have been jumping in the sea. We've got people paddle boarding as well and soaking up the sun. It's absolutely gorgeous. We've got school children as well that I can see just on the beach side as well, having a little paddle. So yeah, it's certainly a fantastic day for businesses here as well. Lots of ice cream vendors selling plenty of ice creams for people to cool down, and that comes as temperatures could reach 33 degrees this weekend in some parts of England. Forecasters are saying that it's going to climb to a peak of 33 degrees on Sunday in the east of England, approaching the highest ever temperature recorded in June, which was 35.6 degrees in 1976. There is this weather warning that's in place from Thursday, just reminding people to be careful in the sun. Obviously, put your sun cream on, stay cool, stay hydrated, but make the most of it. Get out to the coast, get out to places like Scarborough. It's certainly gorgeous here.
Fantastic, Anna. Very jealous. Can't think of anywhere I'd rather be today than by the sea, by a British seaside beach.
Not so much being here in the studio with me.
Yeah, no offence.
By the way, for people who don't want to do centigrade, 36 degrees centigrade, which is what it could be at the weekend, is 96.8 Fahrenheit, i.e. 97.
Ooh.
Edging ever closer to 100.
Get your swimsuit on.
I think it's more relatable if you do it in Fahrenheit.
Right, listen, Mark White is here with us, our Home and Security Editor, because we've been bringing you live footage this morning from outside the court of this case of Liam O'Hara.
Liam O'Hara, yes, you can see outside court now, very large group of supporters there with Irish tricolour flags and also, of course, Palestinian flags there to lend our support to the Kneecap member who has been charged with a terrorism offence. He has just appeared in court and he has been granted unconditional bail. The case has actually been adjourned until the 20th of August. There's some legal argument, so actually the case against him wasn't actually presented as such to the court, so it's not been referred up yet to the Crown Court. There's some legal argument which we can't go into, but while the judge sorts that out, it had been knocked on now until the 20th of August.
So he'll have to go back into court in August?
He'll have to come back to court to find out what the decision of the magistrate is regarding this legal argument on whether this case can continue or not. But he appeared with other members of the rap trio. Remember when he came in about an hour ago or so with the balaclava? We thought that was him. That wasn't him.
Oh.
He's just a little chap. And he came out of the taxi. I think he was behind. So the guy with the balaclava is the guy within the... If you're a big Kneecap fan...
I'm not.
Apologies, but yeah, he always wears the balaclava anyway. So I thought maybe he'd loaned it to him for the court appearance, but no, they're there to support him while he appeared in court.
Mark, if people are at home now listening or watching this and saying, why does a court case about a man we've never heard of matter so much? What is the answer to that question? What is it really about?
Well, what the authorities say it's about is a breach of the Terrorism Act, in that it's alleged that this young man showed support for a banned terrorist group, mainly Hezbollah. Now, you can see that's him coming out of court, we think.
So you can't see him because he's so small?
Let's just have a listen to this crowd, actually, just now. So we think that's him coming out, but he's such a little chap, it's difficult to see him beyond the crowd there.
So just explain why to these people they see him as a hero. He's almost getting a sort of martyr status here.
Yeah, well, that's one of the band members, the one I was talking about before, with the balaclava, the tricolour balaclava. Yeah. You can just make him out there.
He's going to take the microphone here.
But Liam Ohani, well, we absolutely do not want to listen to this because it's an active court case. So we need to come away before anybody actually says any words here that could be prejudicial to the ongoing case.
They've heard you.
Phew.
They've heard you. Well done, Mark.
So, I mean, in terms of the case, it centres on an allegation that this young man wore a Hezbollah flag. So not just unfurled it at a concert in North London and Kentish Town in November of last year, but wore this Hezbollah flag. Hezbollah is a prescribed group. It's a terrorist organisation, so it's an offence, the prosecution claim. So
Thank you,
case
Mark.
knocked on till August 20th.
Super. Thank you so much.
Freedom of speech and
expression. It's about freedom of speech. It's about expression. Right. Plenty more to come this morning. It's 11:24. We're going to take a quick break. See you in just a minute.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
A lot of people have been imbibed with the notion you're born white, you're born male, you've won life's lottery, but that's not what people are telling you. Tell us, what began your journey on this fascinating path?
I mean, I think rather like you, I've had a long interest in men and mental health. And I was talking to companies about men's mental health, and at the end, there'd always be guys who come up to me and say, I can't say this out loud, but my career has taken a real hit because I'm a man. I don't know what to do with that. You know, things had to change. I'm not sexist, I'm not racist, but I'm really suffering. So I heard that so many times. I thought I need to investigate this, gauge how wide this is, and did some polling, spoke to a lot of people, and I was really staggered by what we got back. You know, for nearly half of all white guys to be walking around too scared to even give respectful feedback to a colleague, to not risk making a joke, to, you know, a third have said that their mental health has been affected because there's that terrible fear that doing or saying the wrong thing and you're out the door.
Gets you cancelled.
Yeah, and then, you know, particularly from young guys, you know, more than 1 in 3 young guys saying that they've directly lost out on career opportunities, promotions because they're white men. It was a scale I didn't expect, and you know, as I said, No one's saying that this didn't have to change. You know, in my old BBC days, I worked undercover to expose racism. But the DEI, the diversity programmes that have been rolled out, aren't just nice HR policies. They're actually rooted in an early 70s radical Marxism that divides everyone into oppressed and oppressor. And if you're white and male, you're an oppressor. Doesn't matter if you're working class, doesn't matter what your mental health's like. You're already seen as top of the pack. And as we know, it's a massive distortion of what it's like for most guys.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, 11:28. Andrew and Bev with you, and also Stephen Pound and Mike Parry are with us as well. OK, fellas, do you want to talk about Labour's plan to stop councils going bust?
Well, is there a plan to stop councils going bust? A lot of them have gone bust already. More are going bust. And the one stat, which I'm afraid I always revert back to in this, is why is between a quarter and a third of my council tax collected from me to pay inflated pensions to all the people who work in the council? And don't people understand? Look, only, I think, last week, in an era when we're supposed to be shrinking the public sector, we've got more civil servants than ever. Another 2,000 taken on. What people don't realise is that when you take on somebody in the public sector, you are not only paying them for the years they do their job, you are paying them a massive overinflated pension for all the years after they finish the job, and that pension, gold-plated, has to be paid for by the council taxpayer. I think it's a scandal. It's a scandal.
If there was a smidgen of truth and accuracy in what you just said, it would be a problem. However, there isn't.
I challenge you to withdraw that, because every word I told you is a factual truth.
No, it isn't. And I'll say that on record, 75% of local government expenditure in the United Kingdom is on special needs for children and adults. 75%. A minuscule proportion goes on to salaries and pensions.
Oh, 75% on special needs. What about refuse,
on special needs,
street lighting and roads? I don't believe that.
I'm telling you that's nonsense.
I'm sorry.
What about collecting the bins?
I'm sorry. Fact check that.
Yeah, we are going to fact check it. Can we fact check what?
16 years on the council.
Are you telling me?
I want an explanation of that. Go on.
OK, 75% of the expenditure, the average expenditure of councils is on statutory requirements for children and adults and people with special needs. 75%. Three-quarters of the local government budget goes on that.
It can't do. It can't do.
I believe you me, it does.
Where's the money then for bin collections, for pensions, for, everything else, street lighting,
it comes out of the final 25%. Look, what Reform have taken over Kent, and they've tried to act again, we cut out all the rubbish. What they've done, I think they cut a couple of benefits for asylum seekers. There isn't the fat in local government to cut. It has been cut to the... And it's not just Labour councils have gone bankrupt. Somerset has gone bankrupt. Surrey, it's Conservative councils as well as Labour councils. When you have a statutory duty, when you sit down at the beginning of the year and say, this is the money we've got and this is what we've got to spend, 75% of that is spoken for already.
Let me just tell you, local government spending in England is primarily directed towards education, adult social care and children's social care, but not special... You were talking about special needs, Steve.
No, I'm talking about social
and it says it accounts for slightly over half.
OK, well...
Which is not 75%.
Already
so you're wrong.
I'm sorry.
A massive factual error already in your argument. If we look up the facts on how many councils pay between a quarter and a third of their income out in pensions to their own employees...
No council spends a quarter of its income
I will be proved right.
Not a single council does that.
I'm telling you they are, and I really resent you misleading our audience into...
fake news.
Well, let me tell you where you might... The number of school pupils with statements that mean they need support has risen by 71% in the last 6 years.
So I think you're getting your knickers in a
No,
twist, not for the first time.
There is still a huge amount spent on that. You're absolutely
And by the way,
I can just say, in the London
Executive-
Borough of Ealing this year, 76% of our expenditure goes on those statutory...
And let's not forget the vast salaries of chief executives of councils. In Camden, which is Keir Starmer's borough, where he's the MP, the chief executive's just got a salary of £240,000, more than the Prime Minister.
Andrew, let me tell you, it goes much higher. There are some councils which pay over £500,000 to the people running those councils, and they don't run them very well.
Not to an individual.
Final word, fellas.
Yeah.
Stephen, Mike, thank you so much. Don't forget, it's PMQs at midday. And as always...
Angela Rayner.
Gloria Di Piero, want your question for the Prime Minister. Actually, good point.
It's Angela Rayner.
Angela Rayner today.
In the hot seat.
GBNews.com/your say to give your question to Gloria. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Don't go anywhere. Quick break.
He could come in on Zoom from...
Hello again, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Plenty of fine weather for many of us today, and with lots of sunshine, it is going to feel pretty warm, and it's all because we have high pressure dominating the story. That being said, there is a weak frontal system toppling just to the north of that high pressure, and so there will be a bit more cloud at times and a little bit of rain pushing through across parts of Northern Ireland maybe, and also into western Scotland, a few showery bursts too. But otherwise, like I said, it's a dry story with lots of sunshine, especially across much of England and Wales, and with that sunshine, temperatures rising. It is going to feel very warm, if not hot, for many of us. Mid to high 20s, quite likely towards the south. A fair few degrees fresher than this further north and around some coastal parts too, particularly towards the east, if there's a little bit more cloud lingering as well. As we go into this evening, still a couple of showers continuing across some parts of northern Scotland, and then towards western Scotland, some thicker cloud as that weak front that I mentioned pushes its way in. That front will be clearing away from Northern Ireland, but staying quite cloudy for many as we go through the end of the day here. Meanwhile, for England and Wales, for many places away from the far north, well, lots of late sunshine to look forward to. A fine evening ahead. A bit of a north-south split as we go overnight, cloudier towards the north, but even here I am expecting some breaks to develop and just a few spots of rain perhaps towards the Outer Hebrides. Otherwise, for England, Wales and later on Northern Ireland, lots of clear skies, but it's not going to turn particularly chilly. In fact, it's going to be a pretty warm night for many of us, mid to high teens in some places towards the south. And then tomorrow, still some cloud across parts of Scotland, a swathe of cloud pushing its way northwards and a bit of rain affecting some far western parts. Away from this, though, again, lots of sunshine on offer, and with that sunshine, temperatures are likely to get even higher than today. In fact, tomorrow looks set to be the first day that we're going to exceed 30 Celsius in the UK this year.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The top stories. Donald Trump says the US is not going to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, at least for now, as Keir Starmer played down the prospect of an imminent American intervention in the Middle East crisis. The US president earlier called for Iran's unconditional surrender and says he knows where the country's leader is. Iran has said American intervention would be a recipe for all-out war. The US president abruptly left Keir Starmer and allies at a major global summit yesterday amid the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. The Prime Minister said nothing he'd heard from the US President suggested Washington was poised to get involved as Western leaders continue to press for de-escalation between the two nations. In a post on his website Truth Social, the President said he doesn't want to shoot missiles at civilians or involve American soldiers, but he said that US patience is wearing thin. The conflict between the two nations has now entered a sixth day. Israel saying this morning it's begun a wave of attacks in the Tehran area. Israel's claim to have hit Iranian nuclear and missile sites overnight, reportedly hitting the Hojir centrifuge site. Iran's nuclear chief has since claimed the situation of their nuclear facility is good. Iran launched its own attack on Israel, with sirens sounding twice overnight. Israel claims Iran is trying to make nuclear bombs. However, Iran has disputed the Israeli claims and said the site is just used for missile production. Inflation eased slightly to 3.4% in May, according to the Office for National Statistics. It rose to a 14-month high of 3.5% in April after a raft of bill increases hit households. Inflation was driven last month by increased food, furniture and household good costs. Chocolate prices in the UK rose at the fastest pace on record. The Chancellor says there's more to do, while the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says the inflation rate is deeply worrying for families. And the case against Kneecap member Liam O'Hanna has been adjourned until the 20th of August. Mr O'Hanna was granted unconditional bail today and will appear again in person in August at Westminster Magistrates Court. O'Hanna is accused of displaying a flag in support of Iran-backed terror group Hezbollah at a gig last year in London. The band denies the allegations. Kneecap described the prosecution as a witch hunt in a post on X last night. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news soon.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3453 and €1.1695. The price of gold is £2,513.32 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 8,851 points.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
.38, Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew and Bev.
So the Conservative MP David Reid has raised alarm over the government's plan to repeal sections of the Northern Ireland Troubles Act and has vowed to stand up for veterans. This is a cause we've taken up vigorously on this programme.
The Act, which was initially designed to investigate unresolved deaths during the Troubles through an independent commission, also offers conditional immunity to those who cooperate.
Well, let's talk to David Reid now. David, explain to us where we are with this, because your colleague David Davis has been taking this up as an issue. There's been a petition signed by more than 100,000 people. What are you trying to achieve?
So, Andrew and Bev, thank you very much for having me on this morning. So this is a really serious issue. So I'm really fortunate to represent Exmouth and Exeter East. I have the Commando Training Centre in my constituency. All Royal Marines are trained down there. All Commando Forces are trained down there. I'm a former Royal Marine. So I speak to a lot of Northern Ireland veterans when I go down to the pub, and I hear about the troubles they've gone through, having served in Northern Ireland and then having vexatious claims open up against them. Now, we have to remember that these people are in their 70s and 80s. They're not young soldiers that have just come off the battlefield. This is decades on. So I think what we're seeing at the moment is the legislation being opened up by the Labour government. So Hilary Benn within the Northern Ireland office has been on point for this. And we are starting to see a lot of unease within the veteran community. So David Davis, one of my colleagues, and Mark Francois and James Cartledge have been really front-footed with this. Veterans have gone out, they've got a petition together, and we'll have a debate about this legal framework being opened up again. I think this also raises another sort of deeper question, is that the reason why this legislation has been opened up is because the Labour government find it incompatible with certain parts of the ECHR. So we're in this position where we have an international legal framework pressing down on our ability to be able to resolve domestic issues in a time-bound way, where we can give people the assurance that things will be looked into and closed if there are no credible claims.
Just explain that to us. It's incompatible with the ECHR. So are you saying this is an unfortunate byproduct of being in the ECHR, and actually Labour don't want these former soldiers to have to face any sort of justice, but they somehow can't avoid it, or is it more deliberate than that?
So I think if we just look at the Labour government as it is, they're run essentially by a bunch of international human rights lawyers. That's how they see the world. So international law to them is sacrosanct. And that's the issues that we're seeing at the moment. Northern Ireland, the Legacy Act, is secondary to that international framework. I think the bigger issue, though, is that a lot of these international frameworks are built in a world where those international partnerships and frameworks were really important. So they came out from the end of World War II, they were set up and they've kept relative peace. But we're starting to see now, and this is the term that's being used a lot more, is lawfare. So these international laws are being used by activist lawyers, by hostile states against us. And I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. So there will be, here's a good example. We'll go back to the Iraq historic allegations inquiry. And I think we'll all remember the sort of bogeyman of all of that, which was the lawyer Phil Shiner. He went on, he brought forward vexatious claims that weren't credible or completely baseless. He used international law frameworks to do that. It gave a really strong voice to people that he said that had been affected by this internationally, but there were no credible claims. I'm really happy that domestic law closed that down very quickly. He was taken off the legal books and he's not able to practice anymore. But we're seeing that at the moment with Northern Ireland. So there will be a number of different lawyers within Ireland who are representing people from the IRA or former members of the IRA that will be making a quick buck out of this because they're realising now that they can use international law because it's so broad in its scope to use it against our government and against our legal frameworks here domestically in the UK.
And David, people watching this and listening will be, I think, shocked to know that while the government is going to allow the law to pursue soldiers who were protecting British people from terrorists, the terrorists were given a complete clean bill of health by Tony Blair's government. I forgot what the letters were, the comfort letters, I think they were called, as part of the Northern Ireland peace process. So, again, two-tier justice here. The soldiers are being pursued, even though they were doing their duty, but the terrorists who were trying to bring this country to its knees get off scot-free.
Andrew, I couldn't agree more. Look, the situation we're in at the moment, and it goes back to that point, a lot of the people that the government are looking to go after and the legal frameworks that they're trying to apply to them are in their 60s, 70s and 80s now. They did their duty. War is not nice, OK? I'm sure many of your viewers are veterans. It's not nice. The country asked them to go out to Northern Ireland to protect British national interests. And you would expect after that period, after that work has been done, if there were any issues, OK, if there were any sort of illegalities, that people would be prosecuted very quickly. We have some of the highest standards for our armed forces. Everyone knows that when they join up. But the fact that these cases then opened up so many years after the event, and you're taking old people, old men and old women, and you're making them relive through all those challenges, it's sickening to me.
It is. I think I agree with you, David, very much so. Thank you so much, Conservative MP David Reid. Let us know what you think.
Why would anybody join? Why would anybody join the army?
Join the army, be the best. Quite right. Thank goodness for people like him. Now, up next, fat jabs have been linked to more than 100 deaths in the UK. Are we being too laid back about a quick fix for obesity when the long-term effects or even the short-term effects could be much more
They
basic?
don't know about the side effects. But before we talk about that, we're going to talk about the holiday weather, although we've got quite a lot of it here, of course.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heat wave across Portugal, Spain and France is going to continue to build for the next couple of days. We're looking at temperatures in the mid to high 30s, possibly 40 Celsius for a few places. And with that heat, there's a risk of some hefty showers across Portugal and Spain. Some thundery downpours are possible. A few showers also possible further east, affecting Italy and into Greece and Turkey. But actually, through the outlook period, as we go towards the weekend, it's looking largely sunny for many and staying pretty hot.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Chu, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device, and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Let's go to Westminster to talk to Gloria DePierre and Tom Harwood. Now, I think this is a great missed opportunity, you two, for Kemi Badenoch, because the Prime Minister's in Canada at the pointless G7 summit, pointless because we've got no Trump there, she could be standing off against Angela Rayner. That would have been fantastic theatre. But instead, she's getting one of her deputies, somebody called Alex Burghardt, who nobody's heard of, to stand in for her.
It's not even Alex Burghardt this time. That was the last one.
Yeah, it's
Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary. And forgive me for being tedious, Andrew.
You're never
but it's
tedious, Gloria.
Because it's the convention, isn't it? If the Prime Minister can't do it, the lead...
Conventions are for breaking.
Listen, do you know what I do think we can look forward to? Angela Rayner, she is fiery.
Yeah.
Some people might say a little more fiery than Keir Starmer.
Well, I think it's going to be great
good one.
theatre.
It will be.
Absolutely.
Chris Philp up against Angela Rayner. Send your questions for Gloria, Tom and their panel. gbnews.com/your say. Now, weight loss jabs like Mounjaro and Wegovy have been linked to over 100 deaths in the UK.
So experts are now calling for tighter restrictions and regulations on how the weight loss drugs are prescribed.
Let's talk to the CEO of Independent Pharmacies Association, Dr. Layla Hanbeck, now. Good morning, Layla. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, is it the problem here is that we haven't considered the potential side effects of these injections, and unfortunately, some people are having terrible reactions to them?
Well, Bev, I must start by saying that in my professional career as a pharmacist, I've never seen medicines as popular as these weight loss jabs are. So obviously these are very effective medicines, and therefore it's very important that the patient is assessed properly before these medicines are prescribed for them. Of course, they have side effects as well, so therefore assessment is obviously key here.
Do we know what the side effects are, though? And you've seen they're linking 100 deaths to these drugs.
Yes, so for the vast majority of people, the side effects are minor, like, for example, gastrointestinal issues, for example, nausea, vomiting, and so on. But there are serious side effects involved, like, for example, pancreatitis or issues with gallbladder. So therefore, it's very important that before these medicines are prescribed, that the person is assessed properly. In our case, we were basically saying it has to be a face-to-face assessment to ensure we've measured everything, to ensure that everything is done in the right way, so that the prescribing is done in the right way as well.
Because a lot of people are getting them online.
Well, yes, a lot of people are getting them online. They're popular, and sometimes things are bypassed in terms of like important information from the patient is bypassed. So therefore, to make sure that there is no loopholes anywhere, people should be seen face to face to ensure that they get the right assessment.
And even if you do assess somebody, though, you can't know an individual reaction, of course, to the drug. You've got to just roll the dice.
Absolutely. So therefore, it's important that if someone has any side effects, that they let their healthcare professional know as soon as possible. I mean, in pharmacists, we've been delivering this service for many months, and we are very good at identifying these things. So speak to us if you're not feeling right.
Okay. Thank you, Layla. Dr. Layla Hanbeck there. Take them with caution. Don't forget.
We love pharmacists.
I tell you what, though, if you're shocked by over 100 deaths, just see the excess deaths in the countries that rolled out the COVID vaccine worldwide. But anyway, that's for another day.
And the excess deaths caused by obesity. Let's not forget.
PMQs.
With Angela Rayner. Don't miss it. Here's the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Plenty of fine weather for many of us today, and with lots of sunshine, it is going to feel pretty warm, and it's all because we have high pressure dominating the story. That being said, there is a weak frontal system toppling just to the north of that high pressure, and so there will be a bit more cloud at times and a little bit of rain pushing through across parts of Northern Ireland maybe, and also into western Scotland, a few showery bursts too. But otherwise, like I said, it's a dry story with lots of sunshine, especially across much of England and Wales, and with that sunshine, temperatures rising. It is going to feel very warm, if not hot, for many of us. Mid to high 20s, quite likely towards the south. A fair few degrees fresher than this further north, and around some coastal parts too, particularly towards the east, if there's a little bit more cloud lingering as well. As we go into this evening, still a couple of showers continuing across some parts of northern Scotland, and then towards western Scotland, some thicker cloud as that weak front that I mentioned pushes its way in. That front will be clearing away from Northern Ireland, but staying quite cloudy for many as we go through the end of the day here. Meanwhile, for England and Wales, for many places away from the far north, well, lots of late sunshine to look forward to. A fine evening ahead. A bit of a north-south split as we go overnight, cloudier towards the north, but even here I am expecting some breaks to develop and just a few spots of rain perhaps towards the Outer Hebrides. Otherwise, for England, Wales and later on Northern Ireland, lots of clear skies, but it's not going to turn particularly chilly. In fact, it's going to be a pretty warm night for many of us, mid to high teens in some places towards the south. And then tomorrow, still some cloud across parts of Scotland, a swathe of cloud pushing its way northwards and a bit of rain affecting some far western parts. Away from this, though, again, lots of sunshine on offer, and with that sunshine, temperatures are likely to get even higher than today. In fact, tomorrow looks set to be the first day that we're going to exceed 30 Celsius in the UK this year.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm